What's going on, guys? Welcome to an Invite to Peace. I am your host, Chad Campese, and this is our last episode and season as an Invite to Peace. Hey, if you're not sure what's going on, I explained it a bit in the last two episodes, but basically we're switching the format a bit and the subject matter based on some feedback, questions, and some emails about some immediate needs of officers. The goal for this next season is to get you some help now and address some of the issues and struggles you've asked about and are dealing with currently outside the job, relationships, marriage, parenting, mental and physical health, finances, faith, and more. We've got your specific situation in mind for the next season in some episode at some point. We're calling it Surviving Life Off Duty. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but I'm sure by that title, Surviving Life Off Duty, if you're a police officer, you can understand where we're coming from. And I'm bringing in the big guns, the experts, the people who are much smarter than I. So you can listen in your cruiser or wherever you listen to podcasts. They'll be going over all the things that we officers and first responders neglect to focus on as the career tends to take over our time, our attention, our identity, and our lives. Essentially, we're going to get you some help to get your lives back outside of the job, because that job does end, guys, and hopefully you'll have something to go back to when it does. So my ask today right now is that you hit that subscribe button so you know when I come back from a short break as I get ready to put those episodes together and prep for the new season. My current goal at least, is the first week of August, but we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure. This week, though, our last episode as an Invite to Peace, we have Ryan Fuel. He's currently a police officer, supervisor, chaplain, and was one of those good church kids, son of a pastor who drank beer and had hot tub parties, lost a marriage, questioned his worth and purpose, and felt like God abandoned him. He's got one heck of an honest and spiritual conversation while holding a beer and staring at the sky. I will say that over all these episodes, it seems like honesty, no matter where we're doing it or when it happens, is when God finally feels free to connect. However that works, I won't claim to know that I understand it, but his power is made perfect, it looks like, in our weakness. Ryan was no different, and God's response in the midst of Ryan's blunt admission and his life issues and challenges changed and directed everything as he brought a dead man back to life. Ryan Fuel. All right, I'm here tonight with Ryan Fuel. Am I pronouncing that right? Ryan Fuel. Is that correct?
You got it. You got it.
Beautiful. We jump in real quick here. So I know kind of a little bit about your backstory. We talked, and we'll kind of get into that. But first, from that backstory, kind of when the main part of that was going on and those downtimes and failures and darkness moments, I'm curious, one, maybe two, or if one jumps in your mind, biggest question or questions either to God or about your faith in the midst of the things you were going through. What comes to mind when I ask that?
Okay. Yeah. I think a couple things I wrestled with. I mean, in those hard times in the middle and kind of my whole life, I grew up, in a Christian home. I grew up in a good church. I mean, I had a good solid foundation. And I, read the Bible stories, kids' Bibles growing up. And I fully believe that God loved everyone, that God loved, poor people, homeless people, people with tough times, sinners. But I think my whole life I struggled with, that the fact that God loved me. I mean, I knew I was supposed to take it out into the world. I knew God loved people, but somehow I think in my mind it was hard to wrap my head around the fact that I, in fact, was people. And I mean that stuck with me, if I'm honest, most of my life. I mean, up until recent years. And I think the other thing that really plagued me when things were getting rough and when things was tough, was just kind of the idea that God had any purpose for me. I mean, it seemed like, again, you know what the preacher says at church, you know what your Sunday school teachers tell you, and God's got a purpose. God uses everybody, but when you're kind of in the throes of things and things are really going bad for you, it was hard to really believe that God had a plan for me, and that really at my breaking moment was sort of the question I asked God out loud was, like, what are you do? What was the point of all this? What are you doing to me? What what is there anything left that you need from me? And that kind of was sort of the question. Really kind of brought me to my knees and changed everything. So
Okay, so take me back a little bit. So it sounds like I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I
yeah,
know we all have different impressions of what that happy childhood church thing looks like. So what does that look like for you, just briefly? You
yeah.
mentioned
I
you.
I grew up Columbus, Ohio. So Buckeye born and raised, and big family. I have six siblings altogether now. That's mixed with step and
Oh
half.
wow.
But good family, great church. We were in it from before I remember. Uh, and we did everything. I mean, we were the kids in Sunday school. We were doing musicals, dressing up like angels and shepherd on Christmas. I mean, just everything you can imagine. And we weren't forced to do it. I mean, we really enjoyed it. I had great friends. Still to this day that I grew up with in church. So really, just a great way to start. A great base in faith. I had excellent Sunday school teachers. So all that it started good, but I feel like in faith the world has a tendency to kind of chip away at it, and so that kind of naive and young and untested faith of a child, the cracks start happening, and I think it starts young. It starts when you're a kid, and here you're told God loves you just how you are, but the world does not show that to you. So you're out there and, well, God loves me, but this kid at school is popular and this kid's not, and these people are liked and these people aren't. So it started chipping away. My parents divorced, and it wasn't anything too traumatic, but they split when we were young elementary school. And I had a pretty tough stepdad growing up. He had a son when he kind of came into my life, and then had another son with my mom, and he was very much focused on his own children. I mean, that was those kids. His sons were, I don't know, from his lineage, if you will, kind of took the precedent. Those were the kids that he loved. Those were the kids that do no wrong, and you kind of, it went against that message that you're hearing of God. And so, I think that's when questions started popping up, and questions started popping up about, what's my worth? Why would God love me? And that started cracking it. And then, same time, teenage years are coming. So there's general angst that goes with that. Um, and I just remember being in a church and being, involved in the things that good church kids are involved in. I got the reputation of, hey, that's a good kid. He's a good kid. He's a good,
You were a good church kid.
yeah.
I like that.
Oh
Good
yeah,
church
and
kid. All right.
I would hear it, my family was like a lot of Midwest families were preoccupied with how things looked, preoccupied with the image of the good kids, and we tried to live up to that. But in the back of my mind, there was just always this feeling like I don't know, it didn't click. It didn't sit with me. I didn't believe it, deep down. And so, I started testing it myself, and you get into those rebellious teenage years. My dad actually became a United Methodist pastor when I was 14. So, halfway through my childhood, which even, ramped up that image that's gone out, and the good kids
Oh
and the
yeah, pastor's kid, man.
yeah,
Now
the
was that your dad,
PK.
dad, or stepdad?
My dad, my
Dad.
biological dad. And
Okay.
so I start testing, the good kid image, and by being not a good kid, and so I got into, I mean, what plenty of kids get into, but I was just pushing the limits, and I'm out, 15 years old, I'm driving around, drinking with my friends, just, getting into any trouble that we could get into, and it was almost like no matter what I did, and I didn't get in caught or in trouble, I guess. So, but even when I did, it was still like, no, 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 he's a good kid. He's a good kid. No. He sang in the choir on Sunday. There's, maybe he smelled like beer when he came home, but he's still a good kid. And so
Good church kid. Yeah.
I kept pushing it, and I mean, I remember being 17. My dad would go out of town. He lived in a parsonage, so next door to the church, and I mean, I'd throw a house party at 17. Next, people would be going in for Bible study on Thursday night, and there's kids in the hot tub, and I just wave and like, and I think I thought at the time I thought it was funny, but I really think deep down I'm just testing that. I was waiting for somebody to tell me like, you know what, you're not that good, you're not good, you're not, because that's how I felt inside, and so it was. I think I was just trying to get away from that good kid uh, reputation and really just make how I felt inside match the outside. I wanted someone to say like, yeah, he's kind of worthless. He's kind of, he's not a good kid. And, but,
What?
luckily I had enough of a good kid reputation to kind of stuck.
Why do you think you felt that way? Was that you think maybe because stepdad was not focused on you when you guys got together and kind of focused on his own sons, or did you?
Yeah,
Why did you feel?
at the time, I don't think I really came. Later in life, I came to that a little bit. I think was just that maybe like sort of like a dual father figure in your life. I had, my dad's been in my life, great relationship with my dad still to this day, but, it was the typical, 1980s, 1990s divorce situation. You see dad, 3 days on the weekend, you're living with mom full time. So I had this very conflicting, I think, fatherly figure in my life. And that's the kind of the image of God as a father has always stuck with me. Through life, and that's not the only way I see it, but just that image of father really hits home, and I think it was that dual kind of image of a father. On one hand, this father, and my dad's very much that guy, can do no wrong. My dad, he'd always say anything, whatever you do, you're going to be great at it. Even when I would change majors in college or, mess up or whatever it was, you're going to do great. And then I had this, stepfather, a little more demanding, uh, not particularly a real nice guy. And also just, all of his love was directed at his, biological children. Um, so I think that dual conflicting role just sort of, again, it chipped away at like what I thought of, a father figure for one, but then like I think that kind of moved on to what I thought of God the Father, um and kind of how he would feel that way about me.
Gotcha. Okay, well, put a pin in that real quick. You mentioned
Mhm.
something. I didn't realize you were a pastor's kid, so that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, pastor would get ready. You have to have this vision of what the church family looked like, what you looked like as a family because of him being the minister or the pastor. I think it's Second Corinthians. I think it talks about how God's power is projected or made known in people's weaknesses and
Mm.
in their struggles. Why is being a pastor's kid having that view? Why do you think the church, like on Sundays and just within that realm, is more apt to show fakeness? And we're good, we're great, we're awesome, we're the church. We are when the opposite is true, and God even says, my power is projected in your weakness, in your need, in your issues, in your struggles. But we project the opposite, at least at times.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and kind of from what you said, I've heard it before too. We project
Yeah.
the strength and the confidence, and when we really don't always have it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that at all?
I think some. I mean, I think a lot of times, especially young faith, but faith starts as almost just like a family tradition more than something you own yourself. So in the beginning, faith is showing up to choir practice, showing up on Sundays, putting the nice clothes on, and I think I do think human nature, we all want to, you look at social media or you look at, going on a first date with somebody, you put your best self, you want to put out the absolute best perception of yourself that can be there. And so you're like, that's why, right, you got the fancy clothes on Sunday, not the sweatpants. And that's, I think that's part of the conflict too, and that I was kind of wrestling with is because that message, and my church I grew up in was fantastic with just caring for people, the least of these. I mean, they had homeless people sleeping in the basements during the cold months. We'd feed them breakfast on Sunday morning, invite them to worship. It was just a fantastic congregation where, like you said, we're letting, we're bringing people in at their lowest. But we couldn't accept that for ourselves though, so
Right.
I don't know. I think it's just that human nature of wanting to look, infallible. That well, I've got it all together. Especially for Christians. I mean, that hit me in your book. Just that we think because we have because I have faith, then I should, right. Everything should go easier for me. We think
Oh
that
yeah.
I should, I should have the answers. I should be able to get through tough times with a smile on my face. And it's not true. And I think it actually adds a extra layer of guilt
Pressure.
because
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, well, gosh, I should, here I am a Christian. I say I believe in, this all loving, all powerful, all knowing God. And yet here I buckle just like everybody else when things get tough. And, you know, the non-believer might not have that guilt that goes along with it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Sorry. Just a little rabbit trail there. You said it. I wanted to
Yeah.
just throw that out there. All right.
Oh no.
So take me back. Bring up that pin. Cracks.
Yeah.
Teenager.
So
When
and
did when did the cracks start to show a little bit?
well, I think then typical. I go away to college after high school. I went to Ohio University, so I'm away from home, about two
Oh,
hours
party
away.
school too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can get in plenty of trouble down there if you want. So, but also just be, now you've separated yourself from that church home, and you've separated yourself from, um, your family of origin too. So you're out on your own, and I think that's an important part of life and discovering who you are. And but and I always thought this kind of paired up good with the story of the prodigal son, because that was my distant land. Here I leave, and I go away, and I'm forged my own thing, and I continued on with I got a lot more attention for the bad things I did, in college, and the good things. I wasn't a fantastic student, and not because I couldn't have been. I mean, I think I had the ability, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I just would have a good time and hang out with people. I still, in the back of my mind, had kind of that serving and helping mentality. I started in education. A lot of my family are educators, and so that seemed like an easy fit. And but it just never, like, it didn't click. I could just I'm in the classes and I'm reading the books, and I'm like, this isn't what I'm going to do. I couldn't really figure it out. So meet a girl in school, everything seems good. I mean, even though school's not my thing, I figure I'll fake it till I make it and just get by on my own abilities. And so we finished school up and we moved down to Florida, Tampa, Florida. So now we're far away from home, far away
Oh yeah.
from church people, far away from all of that. And we, every now and then, she didn't. This is my future ex-wife at this time, but she wasn't a real church going person. But we did we I brought it up occasionally, and we'd think about we should go to church. I think we even probably stepped foot into a church or two while we were down there. But never for the right reasons. It wasn't. I don't think I was really seeking faith as much as I was seeking that routine. Just doing the thing, going on. Being a good kid, show up, do what's expected. So it never really fit. I struggled initially when we got out because I kind of floundered in school a little bit. I ended up changing my major. I got a degree in family studies. I was going to do social work, something like that. But I get down there, and you're a young adult, and you realize that there's bills to be paid. You realize there's things that you want to buy, places you want to go. Um, so I abandoned the social work thing pretty quick, and I just decided, you know what? I'm going to make money. That's what I'm going to do. That's what people are doing, and I very much fell into the trap of the world. I saw people that had boats. I saw people that had nice cars. I saw, people that could go on vacations I couldn't go on. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can do to make money. Started waiting tables at restaurants, got into restaurant management. Um, and just thought like that would make me happy. I just thought I'll just I can do it on my own. I don't need help. My ability will get me through. I'll work hard as I need to. Um, and so I really pushed that as hard as I could. And we got engaged, and got married. And I did feel, I, kind of leaned towards my actual dad's side of being a father, being a husband at that time. And I wanted to provide. I wanted to, be that person that was, taking care of my wife. And so I just thought the way to do that was, well, I'm going to work. I'm however many hours I got to work, however many jobs I got to work. And I had success. I did all right down there, as managing a restaurant, and just making decent money. Still, having a good time, going out, drinking, doing my thing. So
Well,
um,
let me stop you real quick. So
yeah.
in the midst of all this,
Mhm.
getting married, moving, working, pastor's kid, faith. She's not really a church going person. What does an actual relationship or an inkling or faith look like to you as far as God is concerned in this time period? Is there anything? Is it just church is a thing I go to and that's what I used to do? What does that look like in the back of your mind or
It
in your days?
it was pretty absent. I mean, it was. I think one, just being the stage of life I was, it wasn't much on my mind. Certainly wasn't on her mind, and we were just, maybe because of age or maybe because of personality, we were both very, just had this selfish mindset going on where we were, just pushing ahead, trying to do as good as we could do for ourselves, kind of thing. And so they're really, hey, I'd come home and I'd go to church with my family, but my there was no prayer life, there was no study, there was no I mean, maybe throwing up a prayer when the car wouldn't start or something, but no meaningful faith life at this time. It was just very, and I it hit had the negative consequences of that hadn't hit me yet because I was just pushing so hard to succeed, to make it, to be a grown up, be a man, be a husband. So it was that was all I was focused on, and so there really, I mean, it was faith was non-existent at this time.
Gotcha.
Um, we at some point we figured Florida was too far from home, um, but we didn't want to move back to either of our hometowns. It kind of felt like that was quitting or giving up. So we moved back to Athens, Ohio, where Ohio University is. So we moved back there. I reconsidered just because I hadn't felt a lot of meaning. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give this social work thing a try. I'll put my applications out there, a couple county agencies, city agencies, different things. No luck. I come back, I haven't done it now for a couple years, so I come back and try to do it, nobody will take me. So I was right back on, what, back to making money, back to success, back to fun, back to all that. So I yeah, it's funny because I in my head I thought, well, who makes money? Business people. And I'm like, where are business people? Banks. So I just walked, the first day we moved back, I walked into a bank and I was like, I want to work here. They gave me a job as a part-time teller, I think. And I remember thinking, because I just very arrogant, very full of myself at the time. I thought, I'll run this bank in a couple of years. So I just, again, I work hard. I came in, I did what I needed to do. They made me full time. They put me on loans. They just, they kept moving me up. Ended up getting sales job in the alcohol sales industry, beer distributor down there. So now it's like at that
Wait.
time.
But hey, so you went from the bank, which you were
Mhm.
going to run, to now you're selling alcohol. So
Yep.
different sector. Okay, I didn't.
Yep.
You were quick on
Yep.
that jump there. So
Yep.
gotcha.
So I start doing that, and that's like best of both worlds now because I'm like now I can I'm going out. My job is basically going out. I'm drinking with guys. We're doing beer promotions, wet T-shirt contests. Just and I can work hard and make money. And so I depending how you look at it, people in that life, I was very successful.
Sounds like a lot of fun, man. I'm not gonna
Did well
lie.
for myself. So but yeah, really life was tough, and I think marriage is tough when it's not founded in any kind of faith or any kind of meaning beyond yourself. And I was young and dumb, and so was she. And so I don't think either of us saw that, but I think we were both missing something at that time. And we're just like, couldn't quite put our finger on it. I don't know what's going on. So we decide maybe it's, that we need to go somewhere else. So we moved to Cleveland, Ohio. That's where she's from. Um, I actually I got another beer job working for a brewery out of Minnesota, managing 5 states. So it was like, I mean, way out. I should have never got it, but it just talked my way into a job. So now we moved back to Cleveland, and now I'm traveling 5 days a week. So I mean, I leave Monday, hop on a plane, jump on a car. I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in Detroit. I'm in Minneapolis. I'm all over the place, staying in hotels. Um, Again, I mean, to my friends, to people I knew, very very successful. I mean, I made great money. I thought that's how I was going to provide. That's how I could be a good husband. That's how I could be a good person. That's how I could have the things that I wanted. Um, but this is kind of at this point is where things really started to crack, and I'm several years from any kind of faith life, any kind of service, any kind of folks that are grounded in Christ's love, and so it was. Um, I don't think I knew why, but things start going bad. I'm relying on myself, which is great when things go good, but when stuff starts getting tough, guess whose fault it is? So then you start taking the hits hard. Um, I'd miss a bonus or something. It'd be a lot of money. I'd miss out on it. It kind of just I start spiraling. Things got tough. My drinking got you know, more than it even was. Not fun times, Ryan, going out, uh, drinking it, but like really just problematic stuff. And I'm drinking too much, and I'm traveling, and I'm gone, and this kind of is where everything kind of came to a head with my ex. I mean, we had been growing apart just from kind of living two very selfish individual lives where we were worried about ourselves. I won't put that all on her. I had my part in that, and um, but yes, I think the traveling too was making it even more difficult. And then on top of that, my drinking was getting out of control, and I end up getting arrested for physical control. So a cop knocks on my window one night.
Oh,
There I am snoozing in the front seat of my car. Very, very busy entertainment district in Columbus, and there I am doing the walk of shame there in front of all the bar crowds out on the street, and so just a very low moment. I mean, I'm 28 years old at this time. I'm not a kid. I'm not 22. I'm not some frat boy in college anymore. I should be a grown up. Here I am sitting in a jail cell for a night. I couldn't even bring myself to call anybody to come get me because I was just too ashamed of kind of where I got. And just, yeah, I mean, just a very low moment. So, I mean, and that it was good because it at least snapped me to my senses. Not enough to bring me back to faith at this point, but enough to be like, listen, you're focusing on the wrong things. You're chasing things that aren't bringing any real joy in your life. You're ruining your marriage. You're getting yourself in legal trouble. You're putting other people at risk, yourself at risk. I mean, it was a wake up call for sure.
you didn't
Um,
even call your own wife, to come get you?
no, well, she was in Cleveland and I was in Columbus, so.
Oh, it's true.
And I had
Okay.
family, but I told the officer, he's like, please, he's like, I'd love to talk to this guy sometime. I wanted to look him up, but he's like, please call somebody. He's like, it's a lot of paperwork if I got to take you, down to the county jail.
Oh, wait, I didn't realize. So wait, you had the choice. Yeah, man, you had the choice to call somebody or go to
Yeah.
Franklin County.
And
Oh,
so I didn't go to county.
jeez.
He kept me most of the night, and he was getting off in the morning. And he's like, "Listen, guy," he's like, "if you call somebody and they just tell me they're home, I'll drive you home."
Oh,
And I was like, so I'm like, "Yeah, all right, we'll do that." I took that deal. So he dropped me
gotcha.
off at my sister's, but
Okay.
so I made kind of a half-ass attempt. I come home from that. I decide the traveling's too much, the drinking's too much. Um, and so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get my life together. I'm gonna start pulling things together. So I stopped drinking altogether, not a sip of alcohol. I'm done with it. It's negative. I'm not doing it. I quit this job where I'm making incredible money and traveling all over the place, and just have a lot of like prestige in the area at least. I take a job at a beer distributor, like quite a step down in money and in prestige and everything else. But I think this is like the right things, right? I popped in a couple of churches. I tried to get back to where maybe I find some faith, maybe I find some meaning, and I tried to kind of reconcile with my wife at the time, but it was just too little, too late, as they say. So she was done. It was I think the legal trouble. I think the you know take quitting the job that made a lot of money didn't help. And so then I really, now it seems like I tried to be the good kid again. I tried to do the things, and it didn't work. Um,
How did that end up coming to an end? I mean, was it just one day you came home and she's like, "I just can't do this anymore," or what's that look like?
well, there was infidelity in the marriage, and
Oh,
kind of had been going on, and again, I'm not going to put it all on another person because I played my role, and certainly I was not a good husband. But yeah, there was she gave up on me before before I gave up, and so yeah, I mean, and that was devastating. I mean, that's at that time it's your college sweetheart. You don't know any. That's all you've known for so long. It's even if I was misguided, I was putting a lot of effort into trying to at least provide, trying to be the person that was taken care of. And so when that came to an end, and I think one of the most hurtful parts about a divorce. I mean, you can be mad at a person you feel wronged you, but you split two families apart. I mean, I was pretty close with her family, and kind of not of my own doing. That those relationships just abruptly, boom, are done. And I don't think there was. I don't totally know, but I don't think there were hard feelings towards me, in that manner. But and now that's the city I live in. I'm in Cleveland, where her family is. My family's all in Columbus. And now I'm, again, no faith family, no family of origin, just out there. So I have this wild idea, which I had in my head for a while. But in high school, I had thought about, I should be a police officer. I did a ride along with a suburban department in Columbus. And I thought, here I was. At this point, I'm 30 years old, so I'm not a young man. And I decide, my world's flipped upside down anyway. So what the heck? I was like, I signed up for a police academy. I think I put an application in with Cleveland Police. Um, and I thought, I got nothing to lose at this point. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm like, I've fallen right back into the trap that I always fall into. It's like, well, there's a problem. I need to do something. I will work hard enough to get myself out of it. And so I was still working full time at that distributor. And then I was going on top of that full time to the police academy at night. Um, and at that point, I had kind of given up the no drinking thing. So I'm also, full time drinking after the academy. I mean, now I think about it, it makes me tired just talking about it because I was
Yeah,
burning it at both ends for sure.
yeah, I'm surprised too because with that, and I don't know. I guess I don't remember because it's been so long ago that I got a job. But the OBI, isn't there a statute of limitations as far as becoming a police officer? How many years that has to pass before you can do that or something?
Yeah, and it helped a little. I wasn't moving, so it was a physical control.
Oh,
Some
gotcha.
some places were like it helped. But yeah, I started as I did great in the academy, even being 30. I mean, I'm running PT tests against 21-year-olds and just crushing dudes. I mean,
Nice.
I was running on spite in those days, and I just like nobody is beating me. So I'm hitting the books. I'm hitting the gym. I'm still working. I'm still doing that. And I really thought like this is how I'm going to get myself out of this. I work hard. But then yes, the OVI came back to bite. I mean, I started getting interviews. At one point, I think I was on 22 different police hiring lists.
Oh, wow.
I'd score top three, top five. I don't know that I ever got under a number five on a list. And I'd come in and these guys. I mean, some cities it was like they just yell at me for 45 minutes about what an idiot I was, and I was like, why would you call me in? I just remember, and so then I'm like, so I'm working this distributor job that I feel is below me. I'm trying to work my way out of this hole that I've dug myself in by doing do the police thing. I'll be a good guy again. I'll be back in it, be doing the right things. And now I'm being told, well, no, you already screwed it up too bad. So that feeling, I was talking about before of like the feeling worthless and feeling like, unloved, unworthy, those that started popping up hard, and I just, I was still sort of seeking faith at the time. I started going to a church with my sister in the area. Still kind of like just testing the waters, sit in the back row, sneak in, hear the things slip out,
Don't talk to anybody.
don't
Don't make
talk
eye
to anybody,
contact. Yeah.
because and you did you probably heard other people say it, but you did feel kind of like a fraud. Like you walk in and you kind of felt that heat on you. Like, oh man, these people know. They know I shouldn't be here. They know what I did Saturday nights. And
Yeah.
so it was tough. But as I'm getting rejected, I get done with the academy. I'm still working this beer job. And I'm just being told no, 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 no. When I got divorced, we had a substantial amount of debt. I mean, just astronomical, 60,000 in credit cards. And,
Oh, wow.
so I'm trying to pay this stuff off, but, I'm working and going to school full time. And that was affecting me, on different police lists. They'd pull your credit and, you got all this debt and you haven't paid bills. And I mean, at one point I think I met my ex up. She's like, well, you left some mail, or some mail came for you at the house and I wanted to get it to you. She hands me the mail. It's a letter of a pretty decent suburban police agency wanting me to come in for an interview 2 weeks ago. and
Oh,
then
jeez.
and then a letter from the county of that I was getting sued by a credit card. And I'm just like, and I think so. This is the week. I mean, I'm just like, it was one thing after another. Just police agency telling me no, I'm getting sued. I have guys calling me on the phone harassing me about the debt. I'm kind of feeling like I've already screwed my life up bad enough that I can't get myself out of this. I'm absolutely like there's no, and I really I was feeling just absolutely trapped and absolutely like just helpless. Literally first time in my life felt like there is nothing I cannot work. I can't work my way out of this. I can't talk my way out of this. Um, so I where I sold beer was on the east side of Cleveland, not a great neighborhood, but close to the lake. So and the nice thing about being a beer salesman is that you always have beer samples in your car. So the one day I'm in the dumps, man. It was the day with the letter and the day with the notice of getting sued, and probably another police agency told me no, and I had my boss yells at me at the job I hate, and I was like, I can't do this, and so I had this spot I would go eat lunch sometimes, and it was on the lake. Again, not a great, like, you probably don't want to walk there by yourself kind of part of Cleveland, but you could get right to the lake. So I grab a beer out of the back of my car. It's room temperature, it's supposed to be to give accounts for samples, but I grab the beer, I get out of my car, I just walk to the lake, plop down, and it was typical Cleveland day, just 40 degrees and cloudy and just a crummy day. And I just pop that beer open, and I'm sitting there, and I just was thinking of, some of it was hitting me, just that, like, man, I screwed this up, like, from a long time ago, just like, just all of it, like, kind of going against that good kid thing, walking away from my church family, not taking the love my own family gave me. Just, it was all kind of just like flooding over me. And I've never had like thoughts of like self-harm or harming myself, but I just remember at that moment, like, really not caring if anything ever did. Like, I wasn't going to do it to myself, but I just remember I was sitting there, and probably the first time I've prayed in years, and not in a nice way. Like I'm yelling at the clouds, kind of like angry, and I'm just praying to God. I'm like, what was the point of this? Why, you know I'm thinking about those Sunday school teachers, talking about God loving everybody, and oh, no matter how much you sin. But I'm like, that can't be true, because here I sit, and I just, I'm just cursing, God, and I'm cursing myself, and I'm telling God, if you want to ruin my life, just take it. You can have my, just, and I'm talking about lightning bolts, like, I'm like, strike me down. But I just remember those words coming out. If you want my life, then just take it. And I say this, and I always say it, and I don't think people will buy it, because people haven't all had like a real, like, physical experience. But I mean, I said that, and I just immediately felt a calm come over me, just like a warmth on my face, like, and the clouds just, I mean, I swear to God, just parted. And I remember thinking, it was almost like, I not audibly heard it, but I just felt God telling me, like, yeah, I do want your life, like, deal, do I want your life? Hell yeah, I do, and then he just, and I just remember it was like, it didn't take away the debt. It didn't, make police agencies any more interested in me, or anything like that. But I just, for the first time in as long as I could remember, I just felt like, oh, okay, like, God, no, he hears me. God loves me. God wants me. God, I had just, it had been a really long time, and it was feeling that, like, since I was a child, probably. Um, and I believed it, just the core of my heart. I just believed that God was there. God heard me. God loved me. And God did want my life, and did indeed have a plan for my life. Um, and
Uh,
and for Oh, go ahead.
you mentioned, well, when you were kind of in the midst of that I found interesting. You said, I prayed, and I yelled at God and I said what was really on my heart. And I didn't pray like I used to, like the nicey nice prayers or however you put it.
Right, right.
But I'm curious, like, it sounds like for the first time, you were actually honest with God about your feelings and where you were at. And it sounds like kind of the way you referenced that, from, I don't know, childhood or 15 or whatever, the prayers that you said were more of the, our robotic church
Hmm.
prayer, whatever. We're going to make ourselves sound all high and mighty and heavenly, and we like to
Yeah.
hear ourselves talk, but we don't really say anything. But
Right, right.
then when you were actually honest with God and, cursing him and saying, screw off, and what do you want with me? The honesty that came through is actually what God responded to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that was, I think that's why it was just so life changing, because it was the first time I'd actually, felt prayer answered. I mean, it just the first time I'd actually heard God kind of talk back and tell me, yeah, I'm here. I love you. I need you. And so I've told that story a lot of times, and I usually tell it as like my call. That's what kind of my call story, right? That's when my life changed. That's when but it's far from the end, but that's the dramatic, like, but things don't, it doesn't get, being a Christian doesn't mean, and certainly I wasn't back, I mean, I had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of, work to do on my prayer life, and just giving myself over, because I had been so self-reliant for so long. But that was the first time I thought I really truly believed. I mean, I just thought, like, yeah, God's got this. I don't have to work it. I don't have to, do that. And I kind of gave some of that up. I just gave up a little of the control, a little bit of the planning. Here's what I'm going to do. I just thought, hey, I'm just going to walk this out. I think God's got something going. And my life, things got better. I ended up getting hired, not at a not at a great agency, but a sheriff department took a chance on me, even with my baggage.
Got to
And
start somewhere. That's all right.
Yeah, and more importantly, and I had, I had no meaningful relationships, after my divorce. But I just thought, like, man, I want to share this life with somebody. I really, I'd felt love, back from God, and I wanted to find a meaningful relationship where I could really share life with.
If I,
And
if I could ask real quick
Yeah.
before you go into that, like,
Mhm.
it seems like so we're in this place in Cleveland with a beer in our hand, cursing God, hearing from Him, and then all these realizations that you're kind of coming to now. Is
Mm.
this over a certain amount of time? Is this as you're sitting there on the side by the lake of Cleveland? Like, are these just thoughts that are going through your head, or is this like over the next couple months you've just tried because of what you heard, it really impacted you?
It
Like,
yeah,
what does
it
that look
took
like?
it took some time. I mean, it was I left. I mean, I got up from the beach just feeling reassured, feeling comforted, feeling like someone else had me. Someone else was carrying me. I didn't have to do it. That was immediate. But yeah, the work was sort of took some time, and those realizations took some time. W- w- I think getting my head in the right place and my heart in the right place allowed me to kind of deal with some of the issues I was dealing with debt and with finding a job, and like those were just and for the first time I wasn't obsessing and trying to outwork it and out talk it and out, whatever. I was just trusting in God. I was trusting in the plan. So it took a little time. I had a couple, good friends that through the academy that really really helped me um just get my head right. I mean, not necessarily Christian folks, but good people. Guys that just really kind of looked out for me. I think looking back, and I look at those times when I'm selfish and I'm doing my own thing. I didn't have a lot of close friends because I really didn't. I myself wasn't a good friend. I was worried about me. I was worried about mine. So that doesn't make for a real good friend. And so I didn't have a lot of good relationships. But met a couple people in the academy that were just real good to me. Kind of took care of me while things were not great. So no, it took a little time. Um, and yeah, I met my wife, and it was kind of like I hadn't tried to jump into a relationship of any kind. I mean, I wasn't in the place. I didn't feel ready for that. And I decided to get set up with a girl, meet her up at out for dinner one night, and typical, like we talked about the church clothes, first date, and my buddy I was telling you about's telling me, he's like, listen, don't, he's giving me all these tips, like, don't talk about this and don't do this, and don't say this, don't have too many beers, all this stuff, and and I met my wife, my now wife Nicole, for the first time, and it was, it's just like one of those, I don't know, like people talking a movie. I mean, the second I saw her, I was just like my God, this woman, and all those rules went out the window. I mean, we I think we had a 7 hour dinner. I mean, we sat
Oh
there
my goodness.
and we were talking about religion and about past relationships and heartbreak and kids and just all the stuff you don't talk about on the first date was just pouring out. And the whole time I'm telling myself, like, shut up, man. Like, you're gonna blow this. But it was, just like that encounter with God, it was like it was real, it wasn't putting on this show or putting on this, the pretty church clothes and making up that I got it all together and I'm a good boy. It was just like, hey, listen, here's who I am. She kind of reciprocated that, and yeah, and we locked up pretty quick. My wife at that time and now, just a wonderful woman of faith. She had two boys when we met. She had a marriage previous where her ex had left her when the kids were 3 and an infant. Just took all their money and beat feet and was gone. And so some of those early conversations about that, I was just blown away because of her. She talked a lot about her faith and talked a lot about, and it was a real active faith. I mean, she was born and raised Orthodox, American Orthodox, which I didn't know much about. But she had this, and she told me stories of just like when she went through hard times, how she really learned that, that it was that she had to take her faith into her own hands and into her own heart, and study the Word and work on her prayer life. And it was, I guess I hadn't heard faith that way. I mean, I had a pretty good service background in my faith and helping people, but she just had this more Eastern Orthodox kind of deep prayer life and deep ritual and studying the Word, and it was pretty amazing, pretty powerful. And she was a cautious mother of two boys, and so I didn't meet the boys for quite some time, but I'd come over sometimes, right as she was putting them to bed, or after she put them to bed, and I heard her in there, praying with our sons, and every night, and it was just, I don't know, it wasn't the cutesy prayers. I mean, she's in there just really, really nurturing their faith, really, pouring into them, and it was pretty amazing for me just to be around that, and to have someone kind of willing to take a chance on me and kind of share that life with me was amazing. Um, so we get married. We we decided for the kids' sake not to stick with the Orthodox religion. It was a little rough on kids. It wasn't very engaging for younger folks. So I grew up United Methodist, and we just decided, well, there's a Methodist church on every corner. So I think we listed out like 8 of them, and we're like, we'll just start going. We'll find a place. So we walked into the church we're still at now, and that was the first one we popped in, and I think we ran into a couple people we know, but it was just a community of just a real community. I mean, people, you could just feel the love people had for each other. Just a huge children's ministry that really loved on kids. Lots of groups where they had people that cared for divorced folks. They had people that got together, for Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, overeaters. They really did life together. It was more than Sunday morning there. It was really, and so we threw ourselves into that. We were getting into small groups, and we were getting into, just Bible studies and studying the Word and service activities. And then, but I even though it was in a good way, I start sliding into the Ryan Fuel, working real hard at thing, So now I'm like, I'm gonna be the best Christian there is, I'll be the best at Bible study, and so, so, so I start, and
The best Christian there is. You're going to be. That's awesome.
but and I didn't spiral all the way down like I had in the past, but I was kind of going in that direction. Um, of just self-reliance. I mean, again, hey, I'm gonna, I can learn enough about God. I can study the word enough. I'll work on my prayer life. But again, it's about me. It's about me. It's about me. I'm losing what it really means to be, a follower of Christ. And so we had two little girls, brought them up in the church. But early on, so we're in this faith life. And by this point, I had got on at a different agency. I was working for a suburban agency, one of the top in the area, and just having great success, which I kind of equated to just living a good life here. And now I've got the wife. We are really, engaged in each other. We really are engaged in our family. Um, I'm taking care of myself. We're living the good life, and things are going well. And I just put those two together. And I felt really good. I felt like this is how you get rewarded for being, you do good things and good things come. Um, so I was falling back into that like self reliance again, even though it's in a good Christian way. But I still was, I gotten away from that guy who's being authentic with God on the lake shore.
Yeah.
And then we had just a real like, and it turned out okay. But when my older daughter, she's 11 now, when she was 3 years old, she got attacked by a pit bull, right in front of us. We were out with some neighbors, just talking with them. Kids are watering flowers, throwing water balloons, and just out of nowhere, like a missile, man, 125-pound dog just beelined it right at my daughter, just jumped
Oh
right on
my.
top of her. And it was it really like flipped my life upside down again, because here I'd felt, I felt in control again. I felt, that I had taken my life back. I'd given myself back to God. I trusted in His plan. I had done all the right things. I was living a good life, and everything was going great. Not to mention, like, I'm at this time in my career, I'm on the SWAT team. I'm a field training officer. I mean, I felt like
Yeah, you're
pretty
big
capable,
time, man.
pretty
Yeah.
capable dude. And then here, somebody's pet, just comes barreling in, and does this to my daughter right in front of us, and it threw me for a loop. And I felt that loss of control again, and I felt a little bit of like a little hurt, like, here I did all the right things, and this happened. And then on top of that, just the back to that like worthless feeling, here, why do you go to SWAT training? You can't, and we fought the dog off for in a couple seconds, but still, I mean, it felt like an eternity. And I'm like all of that for nothing. For what? I can't even keep, I'm supposed to keep officers safe on the road. I'm supposed to keep citizens safe, and I can't keep my daughter safe, 6 feet in front of me. And so that was tough. And I remember, and I didn't spiral all the way. I didn't start back with the drinking and all of that, but it really threw my faith for a little bit of a loop. But I kept pushing on. I kept thinking, I can beat this. I can work this. Um,
Did
and
you
my
let
wife and we
did you
oh,
let
go ahead.
God know what you thought about that? Honestly, when that happened?
Not all the way. I mean, I more so, I had a decent prayer life, but I still was putting it all on me. It still was always like, oh man, why couldn't I? Why couldn't I save her? Why couldn't I?
Yeah.
And really, I later come to, later through a lot of work, I realized, someone did protect my daughter. Someone did make sure my daughter was okay, and it wasn't me. And so, with some work and with some, some help from some other people, I was able to kind of come to that. But at the time, it was still very self focused. Um, and so that hurt a lot with like work and everything, just because now I'm questioning myself, and I'm questioning if I'm, back to that worthless. Am I good enough? Am I can I protect people? Am I a good enough cop? Am I a good enough dad? It's got me spinning again. Um, and so somebody suggested at our church, my wife and I both went to a kind of a spiritual retreat, like a 3 day separately. We didn't go together. We went, there was a men's and a women's, and it was a real powerful retreat. And I enjoyed myself, and I was learning, and I was praying, and just really getting into it. But during this retreat, a lot of people were kind of finding Christ for the first time, and they were kind of, it was just a typical. I mean, people just really powerfully, physically, coming to God. I mean, just down on their knees at the altar, and hands in the air, and I was sitting there, and it was like kind of like one of the later nights in this retreat, and that was people are committing themselves to Christ, going up to the altar, and I was kind of thinking back, and I was just thinking of like having a faith life that had started before I even remembered. I felt like the idea of finding Christ felt foreign to me, because I'm like, I don't know, he was just always he was there, I think, right? I think he was there. um so I'm watching people go up, and the best description is just jealousy. I'm seeing guys, the hands in their air, and they're just oh my God. And I thought, like, where's my where's my come to Christ moment? Like, where do I this wasn't an angry thought or an angry prayer, but I was kind of a little self pity, I guess, and a little jealousy, and but again, I kind of was praying, just authentically to God, and just saying, like, give me that, give me what these people have. Like, I want to feel that, I want to, and just like that time, I mean, probably more powerful than that. I just, I'm praying that. I'm just like, God, show me, give me my moment, give me my come to Christ, give me my, and all I could just feel like my head, like, hey, look this way, dummy, and I like look at the guy next to me, and he's just got tears coming down his eyes, and he's obviously like, he's got, the shoulders sunken over, and he just a real like unsure look about him, and he's just sitting there crying, and I just felt God like tell me, like, hey, like, if you want your moment, like, walk that guy up to the altar, and help him give himself to Christ. And I talked to him a couple times. We weren't friends, but I did. I'm not that guy. I'm not the walk across the room kind of guy typically. And I put my hand on his shoulder, and I just said, do you want to go up with me and commit your life to Christ? And he's like, I don't know how. And I was like, well, let's go. We'll do it together, And so we went up there at this thing, and it was, I think it was powerful, because again, like, I have this, just I know my sin, and my kind of my black eye is just my self reliance, and I know that, but like, God just kind of reminded me again that, like, listen, like your aha come to Christ moment might be, walking alongside these people, walking along these people. And it just, I mean, that hit me just in a wonderful way. And I felt just strongly that God had some, like, real plan for to use me, kind of in his work and his ministry, and for other people, and that I came back changed from that. My wife went the weekend after me to the same retreat, and she came home, and it was funny, because she's not a camp person, and you're staying in bunks and stuff like that. And I actually thought she was going to come back and just like cuss me out for making her sleep in bunks the whole weekend and stuff. But she walked in and had like a look on her face, like really, I thought she was going to tell me something terrible, and she just told me, um, she's like, I gotta go to. She's like, I have to go to seminary. I have to. I feel like I have to just be a pastoral minister. Like, I felt that strongly, and like when she said it, it just like it made perfect sense to me for her, just with her gifts, and her abilities, and her, just her heart. I was like, yeah, heck yeah, and we didn't know how that was going to work out, or what it would look like, or how we would pay for it, or any of the things, any of the questions. But it wasn't a question at all. She came back, just like I did, just changed from it, and yeah, and then just
Was that a spiritual retreat specifically put on by the Methodist Church, or was it
it's
like what was it
it's
exactly?
it's called a walk to Emmaus. I don't believe it's necessarily Methodist, but
Gotcha.
we linked up to it like through our church, and there were a lot of Methodists there. But I don't think it's particularly Methodist,
Okay.
um, but just the real. I mean, it's kind of a secluded thing. No phones. It's just you're praying, you're singing, you're worshiping. You just really immersing yourself in it, and just kind of freeing yourself of the distractions. And so it was powerful for sure.
So much so that your wife decided to get into the ministry full time, or what does that look like for her now?
Yeah, so right away we kind of look into what it would take, and in the Methodist Church, it's you need a full Master's of Divinity. There's some different paths you can walk, but she felt called to be a ordained elder in the church, and to do that, there's a master's degree program. So the Methodist Church has a process called candidacy, where you just it's kind of like, well, I feel this call from God, and I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, and so you kind of go away for a weekend, and they walk you through some different avenues, and we both did that together because I felt kind of not her. I mean, she came back with a very clear plan, like this is what I want to do. I just felt like I think God might use me. I don't know what that would look like, so we went on this candidacy journey together. And I think, I mean, deep down, I think I was hoping, through discernment, through prayer, that God would tell me, like, hey, don't be a police officer anymore. Like, quit that job, be a pastor. Love on people. I was really hoping that's what God was going to say to me, and it wasn't. So, but for her, that was kind of the path that she had, and so. Yeah, she got into school, and again, it's those moments where when you're walking the right path, it just kind of was all falling together. I mean, she ended up getting a scholarship, so we didn't have to pay for it. There was a kind of a distance learning program with the school she went to, Methesco. It's the Methodist Theological School of Ohio, down in Delaware. So even
Yeah.
even from up in Cleveland, she'd come down a day a week, do the work on the side. Just lots of study, lots of academic work. It took her 5 years total. And in that time, her and I, we ran a small church up here in suburban Cleveland. Her and I,
Your own personal church? Like you were
yeah,
the
yeah. We
Oh
didn't start. I mean,
wow.
it was a Methodist church that didn't have a pastor, and they initially asked Nicole if she'd want to, take a run at it, and she asked if we could do it together, and so we co-pastored a church. We traded off preaching duties, kind of traded off the different. I kind of I kind of lean towards the hospital visits and the funerals and some of that stuff, and she's more of the Bible studies and the preaching, and so we were a pretty good team with our kind of the differing gifts that we had, um, and so
Well,
we did that.
I didn't know about that, man. That could be a whole other 2-hour conversation here with questions from me on that, but I'll try to hold off. But what I'm curious. So knowing how your dad ran a church way back when, what that looked like, as far as maybe the little bit of the inauthenticity of you
Mhm.
realizing that might be kind of a more surface Sunday type thing on the Sundays.
Mhm.
You guys are now running a church. Did that change the way you guys led at all, knowing what you had been through? And
Well, I think what it did, we now neither of us run a church now, and I think what
oh, gotcha.
happened was, we got into it, and I think we found ourselves back into that, not unauthentic, but certainly the come on Sunday, do your hour, walk out. Just it wasn't all that. It wasn't what you felt. When you say you felt called by God to do something, that's a serious that's a serious feeling. That's a serious calling. And Sunday morning didn't feel like it. And so we both separately were kind of discussing that and talking what I don't know if this is it. And uh, I I sort of found, at the time I was doing some things on the side. I run a little police Bible study, so it's just a group of guys from the area, mostly my department, but a couple other departments, a couple federal agencies. Um, it's I call it a Bible study. It's light on study, but it's fellowship. It's a group of guys and gals that get together and kind of talk about what faith means in the lens of our profession. It's been real helpful for me. I think I honestly started it because I needed it. I wanted a group that I
Yeah.
could talk with, bounce ideas off with, talk about struggles with. And nobody else was starting it. So I was like, well, I guess I guess it'll be me. So I sort of poured myself into that. And I was saying about, hoping God would tell me to be a pastor. I was really hoping, and that's when we tried this church out. We thought maybe we'll run this church. We'll find out this is it. This is what God has in store for us. But what I think I found was God telling me, listen, I gave you, I put you where I wanted you. Like I gave you the people I want you to serve. I get, these people around you are the ones hurting, both the officers that I work with and the people. I mean, we come across we come across the lowest people every day. I mean, we don't have to go seek them out. They come, we get called to their houses. We get called to the streets and the bars and everywhere else. So we're dealing with people addicted. We're dealing with people that are fighting demons and dealing with drugs and alcohol and prostitution. I mean, that's our life, and so I felt strongly God just telling me that, I do have a plan, but my plan for you is where you're at. There's people here to serve. And my wife, kind of the same, just had been doing work with some organizations dealing with refugees in Cleveland, and some different other just different ministries around town, where she was out in the world, just loving people, showing people God's love, and that's where. So she's actually changed her in the Methodist Church. The two paths are ordained elder, which is pastoral ministry, or an ordained deacon. And a deacon, the good news is you can do anything and go anywhere. The bad news is there's no promise anyone will pay you, which is not the point of it, but. So she's taken that route, and just she's going to just see where God takes her, and kind of take it out into the world, and spread His love that way.
So you're leading a Bible study, full-time police officer.
Mm-hmm.
She's legit in her path as far as what she's pursuing with the church and that thing. Is there a point you've looked back or have felt like it's finally come full circle, where it hit you, all this time, teenager, childhood, searching for worth, searching for purpose, searching for kind of validation, and He does have a plan, you're important, you're supposed to be here. Was there a point in all of this now where you're at that you've kind of come to realize, oh, this is it, I'm here, I've got what I need?
Very recently this year, and I think the feeling came before, but I wasn't able to really articulate it. And I told you that first story on the lakeshore. I've preached that a couple of times. I preached it at my dad's church in Columbus with him on Father's Day, which was really cool. I preached it at the church we ran. I preached it at the church we're at, and I always tell it as kind of as my prodigal. Tell it as my story as the prodigal son. And I was away, and I was on a distant land, and then but then I came back, and the Father embraced me and all this. Well, obviously my story didn't stop there, and I always felt kind of disingenuous because I tell people, I guess it's a good story, and it's true, and it tells me how I have this interaction with God. But I kept thinking, but that wasn't the end of it. I wasn't home. I didn't make it home, because I was still, I was still making that trip from the distant land back. I'm still trying to get back to God, and get back to, who I am in God's eyes. That's a journey I think we're on forever. But I this isn't my own. I read this, but it was Henry Nouwen, and he on the prodigal son. He has a book on it, and he just really just dove into that story and the painting that Rembrandt did on it. And he had a line that was just struck me, just absolutely pierced my heart, where he said that the part in the story that people miss, they see when he goes away, they see when he comes back, they see how he interacts with the dad. But he's like, the most important part of that story is that the son realizes, when he's in the distant land, that he's somebody's son, that he has a father, and he's like, that's where, and that hit me, because I'm like, that's my story, is that, like, I don't know that I'm home. I still think I'm working my way back, and I'm making up apologies I'm going to tell God when I get there. But really what it is that, ultimately, through all this, and through all the challenges, and all the heartbreak, and all the joy, and all, it's every part of it. And I think it started on that beach that day, and I couldn't put it to words. But what really happened, I didn't come home. I just realized that I was God's son, that there was a God that loved me, and that no matter how far away I went, how long I stayed away from him, any way I tried to prove that I wasn't a good enough kid, that I had this father, I had this God that just was waiting. I mean, just looking down the path to see when I was coming home, and just ready to celebrate when I get there. And so I think I'll keep working on getting down that path, and hopefully I can, help some other people get down there with me. But I rest assured now that, and I gave up a lot of that control. I know God's got a plan for me, and, a lot of my life since then has gone, you know how life is, and, having kids and a wife, and it's like, there's never a dull day. There's never, my job's changed a lot of times for good and for bad. And, but I just keep reminding myself that, I've got a home, I've got a family, I'm somebody's son, I'm beloved, and my Father's waiting for me. And so that really, in the end, is kind of the realization that brought me peace.
And it all started to a point on a day that you're sitting with a beer in your hand, cursing God, and telling him you're honest, upset, angry, feelings. And I only bring that up. I keep going back to that in my mind for whatever reason. But I'm curious what the question that keeps coming to my mind for that is, from a cop to a cop. I mean, I'm looking at that and we've both been there. And so I understand where you're coming from. But
Mm,
let's take that back to, if somebody from your early childhood church had, let's
mm,
say they're walking that bike path along that lake and they
mhm.
see Ryan sitting there with a beer in his hand cursing God, what do you think, how do you think they would react to that?
uh I guess depends where they're at. I mean, maybe they'd be. I think deep down we probably all long for that kind of authenticity. I mean, we
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
fake it good, but I think the more, and that's I hope just anybody hearing that, or you know so many people I think stay away. And when I was in the tough time, I stayed away from church because I thought I wasn't good enough. I'm not good enough to go. I can't sit in those pews. And somebody, I can't go talk to the pastor. I've messed up. I've sinned. I've stepped away from God. And that's how I always thought. Anytime something bad was happening, I'm like, of course it's happening. Why? Of course God punishes you when you do bad. But I think if people saw and believed, and I try in the group that these guys that I run with, I really try to just bring that authentic vibe to them of like, listen, like, because a lot of times even there, because, and I'm no, to say, I organize the group, but they're call me the leader. I'm like, hey, easy, easy, but I try to tell them that, like, listen, I don't have it together, man. I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm just here, because I want to show you guys I love you, and God loves you, and we can sit and talk together. So I think that sometimes is the most powerful thing when people can see just the struggle that faith comes with, and the joy, and it's you feel all the emotions in faith, and hopefully ultimately you find the peace, and you find the just that comfort that comes in knowing God loves you. And funny story, you talk about childhood church, because I mentioned that candidacy we go through. So we go to the candidacy. It's all Methodist clergy that are there, and you have name tags on. So I got my name tag on, Ryan Fuel, and this woman walks up to me and she says, "Are you Ryan Fuel? You're Larry Fuel's son?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And she was the youth director at the church where I was telling you about the hot tub parties when I was 17 years
Oh, at
old.
the
She's
at the
like,
parsonage.
"You're Ryan," and I was like, "Oh," and I said, "Listen, I turned out to be a pretty nice guy." I was like, she said, "You were always a good kid." I was like, "There we go." So,
She was understanding. That's very nice. It's funny that you mentioned that, though, because I think that's right. Like, even when you went back to church at the one point, you mentioned you were in the back row, and you're like, man, if these people only knew. And I just wonder, especially since you were a pastor to a point, I guess, for a little bit.
mm,
Like, let's be real. I think everybody in that church at some point is thinking that exact same thing.
mhm.
There's probably not one person who's not thinking that, and yet nobody ever would want to admit it to anybody. Is
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is there a reason, like, you think that, I mean, you kind of explained it once already, but is there, okay, how about not a reason, but is there a way that you can think to get away from that? Is there any way that we can not fake it so much, I guess, is my question. Maybe
I
not,
I think just the more that we're authentic. I mean, I think it leads to more. I think that often. I mean, so my wife and I still sit in the back row of the church on purpose. So we sit as far away, and we always say, we're like, because if any new people come in, this is where they're going to hide. They're going to sit right back here with us,
that's
so
very true.
we can find them. And but there are times that I even my own congregation, and it's a great church family. But there's times that I know there's people I'll know of struggles that people are going through, and yet we'll sit there in this congregation together. Um, and we just I don't know and it's right to give praise, and it's right to praise God, but sometimes I know there's people that are really having a tough time, and they've got the fake smile on, and they're singing their hymn, and if that brings you peace, that's great. But sometimes I think um it'd be nice to have an outlet to let some of that, the struggle, the pain, the doubts, come out. And I think really it comes from making church more than Sunday. I mean, it's you know Sunday service is a place of worship. It's praise. We're thanking God for what He's done for us. But I think congregations just need to do life together a little more, and be able to share in all of it. Just really be able to listen. These are the people I worship with on Sunday, but these are the people I call on Monday when I'm having a tough time, and the guys I call on Thursday when I'm doubting my faith or wonder if I'm a good enough dad. You have taking another step to kind of get that. It's hard to do on Sunday, so you need to be able to have a little more life together to let the real stuff in.
That is a great point, and I think I'll stop pushing you at this point because that was a great point to end on. Okay, well, it sounds like, and since I'm in Columbus, you're in Cleveland, so you're kind of local to Ohio, but
Yeah,
is there a specific church then, since probably people that will listen to this, that you would shout out if somebody's looking for a place up there in Cleveland and wants to get a hold of you or get a hold of a church you want to
So
throw out there?
we're at Strongsville United Methodist Church. My wife and I both. And yeah, doors are always open. It's a place people feel safe. Certainly, any law enforcement that are looking for a group they can just be real with and talk about struggles and doubts. And we call ourselves a shield of faith. But we operate out of the church. Dates and times kind of change, but if you contacted the church, they can get you the dates and times that we're meeting up, and we'd love to have anybody. There's a lot of struggles in this profession, so I think it's a lot of the people that have come to the group have come with some real struggles that later, once they found community, were able to overcome. But anybody that needs somebody to talk to, could certainly reach out to me personally, or stop up to the group, stop up to the church. We'd love to have you.
So that, what you just mentioned, though, that wasn't the church service. That was your actual study that you lead in that area?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the group's called Shield of Faith.
Gotcha.
At Strongsville United Methodist Church, where we
Gotcha.
attend. So yeah.
Okay. Now I feel you've convicted me a little bit. I feel like maybe I should start like something like that in Columbus or something. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know if anybody ever want to do that, but if you're interested, reach out. Let me know. Maybe. Who knows? Okay. And if they want to do that with you, is there an email or anywhere that you would want to be gotten a hold of? Or
you could Chaplain Fuel, my last name, so FEWELL at gmail.com. You can shoot an email there, or I don't know if you'll link Facebook to this or anything, but I'm on Facebook too. You can look me up.
Yeah, I can I'll put your email and your Facebook in the show notes. So if anybody's listening to this and they want to get a hold of him, check out the show notes, and his information, contact info will be there.
Cool.
All right, man. Anything I didn't ask or that you would want to throw out there that you had planned before we call it a session here?
No, that's it, man. I mean, if anyone's listening and doubts at all that there's a Father out there that loves you and is waiting for you to come home, just believe that, man, and seek out someone that's farther along their walk in faith, if you ever doubt it, and just be assured God loves you.
And it sounds like instead of praying up fluffy, happy, fake prayers, grab a beer, go sit on the lake, be honest, and that God will probably reach out to you and let you know that He's there.
Absolutely.
All right, Ryan. We appreciate you coming on tonight, man. I wish you well in the future. Right. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Authentic, honest, blunt. I think if Ryan or I could leave you with anything, I think it would be this. Again, in all of these interviews, in all of these lives and circumstances, God speaks, He connects, He directs, and He leads in and from the point that people like you, Ryan, and I are finally open and honest and forthcoming about who we are authentically, what we honestly think about life and faith, even God, and where we've ended up after trying to do it all our own, fix it all on our own, and come back all on our own. Guys, we can wear those happy masks, be fake and live on the surface all we'd like. But His power, again, is perfected in our weakness, in our need, and in our authenticity, which is maybe why it takes so long for some of us, myself very much included, to ever get a grasp or to hear from God. We were always created, to connect and be led. Anything less than that, and we get what we want. We get to do it all on our own. And we also get all the not so great consequences that come with that. Hey, I'm not sure where you're at or what you're going through, but if you need the leadership that Ryan, I, and so many others have found, reach out to me, maybe, but mostly, wherever you're at and whatever you're going through, reach out to God. He will meet you when, where, and how you need it. Because let's face it and be honest, only He really knows. All right, guys, again, we're taking a little break as I put together season 2. We're going to get you into a mindset to survive life off duty, outside of the police department. with your families, your relationships, your parenting, your faith, your mental and physical health, all that kind of stuff that's confusing and hectic outside of the time clock. Don't forget, you hit that subscribe button and it'll pop back up when we're back, so you'll know exactly when that season starts. Again, I'm shooting for August, but kids and life outside of my time clock will dictate that, quite honestly. Hey, thanks for listening. I've had fun in this first season, and you can get a hold of me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or probably easiest, shoot me an email at chad.campese, that's CAMPESE, @gmail.com. And until we meet again for season 2, I will catch you guys on the other side.